welcome to the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct, which you're sat within Griffith University today. So really appreciate the opportunity to spread the word about what's going on here on the Gold Coast, and in particular its links into the education sector as well. So I'll just give you a bit of an overview and then finish up with one of our DVDs that will really capture what we're aiming to do here on the Gold Coast in this sector. So the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct is a 200-hectare precinct, of which we're sat within Griffith University, which is a key precinct partner. Then we also have the University Hospital just over the road, which has 750 permanent beds, but has about 1,500 beds that are used on a daily basis with outpatient services as well. So a very busy hospital with the busiest emergency department in the country as well. That opened in 2015, and we also have the Gold Coast Private Hospital located here, operated by Healthscope. The key component that we see as an opportunity for the region and the country is the land that was made available through the recent hosting of the 2018 Commonwealth Games, which provided us with a residential component within the precinct and also available developable land. So it's about 9.5 hectares, which myself as project director for the precinct and my team are focused on what sort of investment we attract into that precinct that will add value to the sectors that we're focused on here in terms of the economy. The precinct's been very fortunate over the last decade and it's evolved over time. It's been a project of the city for the last 20 years, so these things do take a lot of time to keep everyone on the pathway, but we've been fortunate enough to have the one example of all three levels of government coming together in terms of our light rail system that many of you may be aware of, which runs directly through the precinct and connects us to heavy rail up to Brisbane. And that was a fortunate piece of connectivity for us, which really drew together the other elements and the investment that's been made of over $5 billion, which includes obviously the university and its focus on its campus, those two hospitals, the residential component, but also the other levels of infrastructure to enable all of that to occur in one critical site. So in terms of the precinct partners, my position and team are funded jointly through through Griffith University, through Gold Coast Health, through the City of Gold Coast and the Queensland Government. So it's very much an example of all the partners coming together with one vision, because they all see the opportunities for them to gain from their involvement within the precinct. So obviously we're within Griffith University that most of you would be more than aware of, one of the leading universities, particularly for the city, but also in particular areas for the country. Very much a focus on research and innovation. As a new university, it's able to be a lot more agile and innovative in particular sectors, and that's where we're focused in terms of global opportunities and the sort of companies that we can attract here into the city for graduates coming through the pipeline. As I mentioned, we have Gold Coast Health, who run all of the health services across the Gold Coast region, but they have their new hospital just over the road, which has been recognised as one of the key hospitals within the world in terms of its global design. If you've, I won't say you've been fortunate enough, but if you've been into the hospital, then you will see it's quite an impressive facility, and when we have international delegations we take through, they presume it's at least a hotel, and if not a hotel, it must be a private hospital. So it's quite a significant piece of infrastructure, but we're also fortunate that it has a lot of leading researchers and clinicians within it who have an active interest in partnering with our local universities, and then in turn with local industry and global partners as well. Healthscope, who operate the private hospital, a smaller facility but very much focused on new technologies. They have a range of robotic surgery technologies that they've integrated into their theatre operations, so very much a leader in that space, and for us to be able to look at some of those partners in the digital healthcare space as well. So in terms of those partners, the four at the bottom, you see their logos there, that they're the ones that have come together. They created the project office to focus on what companies we want to bring into the precinct, what investment we want to bring in around those key objectives back in 2015. It's a 6-year agreement at the moment between all of those partners. So a real strong commitment and funding allocation to make sure that we really focus in on what requirements there are, both in terms of graduates and training within the region, but also what sort of companies we want to attract here. So we have that strong pipeline that I'll touch more on in a moment. And the residential component's just really lifted us in terms of having that legacy from the Commonwealth Games. The brightly coloured buildings that you can't miss within the precinct will become home to over 2,500 people once they become available early next year on a rental basis initially. So very much looking at opportunities around student accommodation, but also around things like healthcare, rehabilitation, new ways of doing aged care. So we're hoping to get a lot of interrelated activities within that residential. There will also be a boutique retail offering within the precinct, so really creating a community here within the 200 hectares. So a small Woolworths and a range of retail facilities which will all open during 2019. So when we're going around the world pitching to various companies about why they should be geographically located here, obviously it's got to be attractive. A lot of the things you'll see listed on this slide, everybody else in the world is saying about their precincts as well. So that's really why my team's role is very much about identifying what niche strengths we have in clinical, academic and research environments here, and actually then identifying which companies globally would be able to leverage that value to create the opportunity for them to come and locate a commercial facility here within the precinct, which obviously then creates the jobs for those coming through the pipelines. As well as part of that work, we've done a lot of market sounding with those global companies in terms of the workplace skills that they would require if they came to locate here. Skills is always the first point of choice in terms of what they see as their priorities, obviously. So we're also, we undertook in partnership with Study Gold Coast an employability study that really focused on the precinct and what skills would be required by those employers of the future going forward, and then aligning that and talking to the training providers here in the region and the universities in terms of making sure that we're adjusting now to produce those graduates and those skills that will be required, which then enables myself when I'm pitching to those global companies that we've got that pipeline occurring for them. Opportunities for companies within the precinct go through a range of areas as highlighted in red at the bottom of that slide, in terms of there's large-scale developers that we're talking to who are looking at between $50 and $100 million worth of investment into actual facilities, which is great, and that's obviously the KPI ticked off, but a lot of those start through nurturing relationships. So a lot of it's about collaboration and where the companies we're talking to can link into university and training providers across the region, establish relationships which give them the confidence in the market here and also the abilities and the trust that's required to then actually look at investment in the longer term for the precinct itself. So the land that we're talking about, if you're familiar with the site, it's all down by where the Commonwealth Games Athletes Village is located, and snaking around that. So the colours are all a bit obscure on that slide now. I look at it from here, but the yellow and green are all the sites that are available in terms of the 9.5 hectares that we actually have for development for companies starting from early next year once the site has been handed over. And some of the investment that we've managed to secure over the last 2 years is indicated here. So we're actually talking to a local investor we've been dealing with for the last 3 years, who's now committed to create an integrated child health research facility, about a $50 million facility, which will occur in that middle lot of the screen. That's very much been built around the relationships we've managed to facilitate between the university and the clinical environment in the region, and seeing the opportunities that that has from a special needs childcare perspective, and also the location of a training college within that facility as well for a Gold Coast-based trainer that is already undertaking that level of activity. We have a developer-led facility who came through an expression of interest from the Queensland Government, so that's a developer wanting to build a building, but they then need the tenants which align to the precinct occupant criteria that we have here in terms of making sure it links to the region's strengths and things that we can say that we're credibly globally leaders in. And so at the moment we're negotiating with a global clinical trials company who will potentially take 3 floors of that facility, and it's in a very niche area of first-in-human trials, which is a gap that we have here in the region. So we'll actually establish ourselves as a leader in clinical trials in that particular niche space, and health are obviously very interested in co-location there, as well as potentially Griffith University's clinical trials unit. We also have a huge commitment being made by Griffith University, stepping out of their regular space and really looking forward in terms of how they engage more actively with industry. They'll be putting $80 million into an Advanced Design and Prototype Technologies Institute, which will be focused around their niche strength in new materials development, and that's why we're focusing on prototypes. So not doing mass manufacturing, but allowing companies from the city, the region, the world to come to this facility and have access to the latest research in new materials, new ways of prototyping their particular products, and having the ability to do short print runs of those in a dedicated facility. We already have an ADAPT, which is the acronym Point One, here within Griffith University, as a prototype to enable us to actually start that industry engagement and building up the capacity, both of the education that's occurring and the research that's occurring in Griffith University, but also industry coming in and seeing it as a viable opportunity to have access in the larger facility once it's available in a couple of years' time. One thing that we can activate immediately is a building that's left after the Commonwealth Games, and that will become a co-working and student startup space. So very much a facility focused around innovation and incubation, but focused on students who have those entrepreneurial ideas, are looking for the support to be mentored, and are at a stage where they're actually looking to go to market. So this will be a facility that will be supported by all of the partners. The building is owned by the Queensland Government, but Griffith University will be taking a very active role, along with the City of Gold Coast, to bring back our innovation centre that we had within the city for many years that then had to close down due to funding. We've now found additional funding that we can bring that back. So very much, again, focused not just on Griffith students, but students across the region, being able to come in and have that support in terms of innovation. That's just touching on everything I just said. In terms of that facility, it just indicates where that building is. It's actually just opposite the light rail station down the other end of the campus, and will provide both co-working space as well. So we actually see this as a good landing platform for some of those companies I mentioned earlier, who globally want to make a commitment to an Asia-Pacific location, but they'd rather send, say, between 5 and 10 staff here initially to build up that commercial business space. So this will actually give us what we're calling a landing platform for them to be able to come and have desk availability at a subsidised rate, and build up their business base to actually then justify whether they want to have further investment or tenancy opportunities within the precinct. So how does this all link back? I have touched on that with some of my comments, but just in terms of our work we're doing, as I say, we work very closely with Study Gold Coast. We work very closely in terms of trying to make sure the businesses that we attract here are viable businesses for the strengths that we have, but also that there's that obvious exchange between how we link into education providers across to those key strengths. So again, how do we build up that critical mass of competitiveness globally, so that we're not all chasing after the same investment or skills and talent base as the rest of the world is things that we truly are recognised globally for. And through the employability work and the work that we've been doing with companies and asking them questions when we're out overseas, doing the pitches and what skill requirements they have, this has really brought together some of the core skills you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide, in terms of where we're focusing our efforts to make sure we've got that pipeline occurring, and we're actually looking at those particular sectors for the skills that the companies are telling us they're going to want, or they would need to justify bringing their companies here. So in terms, again, I keep using the word pipeline, but it very much is about that. It's difficult to attract companies here and get that investment if we don't have the skill base. So the two are so strongly interlinked to ensure that we both are able to retain talent where it's appropriate, but also attract new talent in, and be able to give graduates the opportunity to travel, but to be able to come back as well with their skills and experience to recognise global companies here and that base of credible and reputational skill base. So for us as a health and knowledge precinct, obviously a lot of our work is at that business end in terms of commercial investment and negotiating with companies about why they should come here. But for us, we feel that we're a strong hub within the ecosystem, both in education and innovation within the region, and very much want to complement the work that's going on, and hence why we try and link into as many agencies, and I'm sure there's many here that we're not aware of, and so that would be a pleasure to be able to link into as many as possible to ensure that we are looking at things that we can actually then accommodate within the region and actually support and sustain, and we're not attracting things here that aren't going to be able to be sustained. There's just a few slides here. I won't go through them all, but that's just going into a little bit more detail in terms of the sector areas where we're focusing in on both investment but also on the skill generation base. So very much no surprise, as the rest of the world is, in that biomed space. We are having particular focus areas, so we have the Institute for Glycomics here at Griffith University, so a lot of the investment work we're doing, because they are so well established within the world in terms of the work that they do, in terms of vaccine development, we're focusing in at that level, sort of that fine grain level, in terms of the companies that they're already doing co-development vaccine work with globally, particularly in China, and then pitching to those companies to come and locate here around that work. So again, looking at where the advantages are, but those companies will require the right skill base of people to be able to be employed within them. As I mentioned, obviously advanced manufacturing, again, is a global area that everyone's looking into, but in particular our areas being around the new materials, the micro and nanotechnology space, and how we can apply that across a range of industry sectors, and that isn't purely medical. That's where we're focused in the initial stage because of the logical approach with our partners here in the precinct, but also we're working very closely with a lot of the main companies in Yatala, and from a marine, aviation, defence perspective, as well as many others. And then again, no surprise in terms of the IT cyber security space, but where is it that we have that particular niche skill? That's emerging in the augmented reality and AI space, particularly in the health sector. We have IntelliHQ, an entity already established from Gold Coast Health that's already working with the likes of Amazon and Philips Healthcare in terms of using data analytics and artificial intelligence to provide solutions of the future. It's been picked up on globally already, so we're just looking at how we can continually leverage that and find out our place in the world that we can actually focus in on, so rather than trying to be everything to everybody. And again, as I've mentioned, in that health space, an obvious one, but in particular niche areas in that clinical trials area I mentioned, but also in the neurovascular surgery area. We have one of the leading global researchers and clinicians based here over the road, who's very passionate about it and has actually been able to generate significant interest for a training facility here in particular neurovascular surgery, and linking into the 3D printing around guides and surgical guides, and how we can actually train people using 3D printing of body parts prior to people actually going into the real thing. So everything overlaps in this world once you start digging into it. So we're just trying to make sure we stay quite clear on some of those high-level priorities, both from the skill-based generation, but also from attracting the right companies to come in. That's just an image that we use just to show that we are unique globally in the fact that we have all these partners so closely geographically linked. A lot of innovation precincts have allegiances or alliances with universities, with hospitals, but no one has this strong co-location in terms of being able to walk across a road between each of the partners, have access to residential, but also have access to potentially global companies, all within a 200-hectare space. And this is a fully built out, an artist's impression. So just in terms of the density, we are looking at about 200,000 square metres of gross floor area that could be created from the 9.5 hectares, and that could potentially generate about 26,000 jobs, which represents 11% of the Gold Coast's job provision. So that's a great figure in terms of what we're delivering, but it also highlights the amount of jobs we need to be creating on precincts like this elsewhere in different niche areas. So also something to be thinking of going forward. This has taken 20 years to get to this stage, and a lot of planning and tenacity has to occur to keep these things on track. So just to finish up, I'll just play you our video and then happy to take any questions.
On the edge of the horizon sits Australia's leading lifestyle city. A world-renowned community of life, ideas and innovation. A fast-growing city in transformation. And at the cutting edge of this horizon awaits a unique global opportunity. Introducing the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct. 200 hectares of prime land. $5 billion in recent infrastructure. A world-class university campus. A state-of-the-art public hospital. A major new private hospital. Gold Coast light rail access. And the Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games Athletes Village. And beyond the horizon, this exciting health and knowledge precinct will develop into a vibrant community to live, work and learn. Creating 12,500 new jobs of the future, the precinct will deliver $2.9 billion in gross economic benefit to the city. It's an unprecedented investment opportunity, a true game changer for the Gold Coast. The horizon will never look the same.
There's no other place in Australia where you can combine an amazing lifestyle with both the land and the opportunity to leverage so much existing infrastructure and expertise.
We don't get many opportunities like this in a lifetime. We have a truly wonderful opportunity to lead innovation, high technology industries for Australia and the world.
It's that synergy between health professionals, academics and industrial researchers that's going to create world-class healthcare for us.
Pioneering advanced manufacturing, world-leading biomedical research, cutting-edge sports science, medical devices, implants and personalised medicine, leading-edge micro and nanoscience and new materials, powerful data analytics and artificial intelligence.
We have such an investment by all of the partners, both in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of the vision. They want to create something here that's quite globally unique.
A stable, growing economy and competitive taxes, government incentives, a skilled workforce, greenfield land and smart infrastructure, a beautiful natural environment and climate, and a lifestyle second to none.
Australia and in particular the City of Gold Coast really provide that platform for global companies to come in and create a cutting competitive edge for themselves within the marketplace.
We think it's a perfect storm of innovation.
At the contemporary convergence of health, science and engineering, and empowered by digital technology, precinct researchers, clinicians and companies collaborate to innovate. Join them beyond the horizon. Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct.
So that's our precinct. So happy to take any questions. My contact details are there. There's also fact sheets, I think, around the room which have contact details on as well. So as I say, we're very focused both in that skills area as well as our predominant role in investment attraction. So happy to speak or meet with anyone if you feel there's a precedent appropriate that we could talk about.